All right, third down here on the Penn State Blitz here on Penn Live. Let's talk about skill position guys. So we're going to talk about some wideouts and some tight ends. Brandon Polk's been mentioned early in spring. KJ Hamler's gotten a lot of buzz. They're both really kind of the same player, same body type. They figure as slots or return guys. But, you know, we haven't really heard a lot about a guy like Juwan Johnson, only because I think that James isn't going to work him a lot in the spring. He was the breakout player last year, and I think they have really he's got to be one of the focal points of the passing game this year, especially with Mike Gesecki moving on.
Right.
But what do you make of the Penn State wideout position, and are we talking enough about Juwan Johnson?
You know what? That was one of the things I was thinking about just the other day. Is Juwan Johnson flying under the radar because of the fact that he's not doing much right now? And I guess my answer to that would be, when a guy is, I guess the question would be, has he proven enough to be in that conversation? He looks the part.
Yeah.
But there were times last year that he just didn't show up. He looks like he could go play in the NFL today.
Yeah.
But the production didn't always match it. Now, Joe Moorhead's offense, we know sometimes your receivers, even your best ones, aren't going to be the guys that end up catching touchdowns or long passes. But I would say that there's definitely room for him to go up. I mean, like I said, the guy looks the part. He's freakish. He's been working out in the offseason with some NFL guys. I mean, he has all the tools, but I think we need to see him put it together. I guess at this point, it's sort of a known commodity, but I think there's a little bit more we could know about him to assume that he can fall into a DaeSean Hamilton kind of production role. And then the other thing I'd point out is that what does Penn State do to replace him? I mean, it's not the stats necessarily, but the position. So, you know, Brandon Polk says he's working outside now with the spot that DeAndre Tompkins started at a year ago. Are they moving Tompkins to the slot? Is KJ Hamler the guy that's going to start at the slot and Tompkins and Polk fight it out for first-team reps? How does Penn State play this? And don't forget, the five-star Justin Shorter comes to campus in just a few months.
Yeah, I talked to John Reed last week, and he said that DeAndre Tompkins is moving around. He was an outside receiver. He's not the tallest guy, but he's really good with his speed and also making contested catches. I think that's why he works outside. He had that long touchdown against Michigan State last year. He had the long touchdown against Maryland 2 years ago. But the fact that they're using him in the slot tells me that Penn State's offense might look a little bit different. And that kind of leads into a talking point about the tight ends, Greg. With Mike Gesecki gone, is Penn State better off with maybe 4 wideouts on the field in the spread instead of a tight end? What does it mean for Tommy Stevens, who's the Lion, who's going to be back? Are they going to use him as a tight end, or do they feel good about a tight end they have on the roster that can kind of replace at least some of Mike Gesicki's production?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, you hear a lot of good things about Dalton, but the question is that because nobody else is making a step forward, or is that because he's overcome some of the challenges earlier in his career to be a guy that can start and play a lot of football? I think that when you ask that kind of question, what is Penn State going to do? Are they going to go 4 wide a lot, or is it going to beat a Tommy Stevens package more heavily? I have a hard time believing Tommy Stevens stayed, Bob, if he was not pretty much assured that he was going to see the field more, and especially against good opponents. I mean, the Ohio States, Michigan States of the world. So I have to think that, you know, he will be used frequently. Dalton will be used frequently. But what if Zack Koontz is a guy that they burn his red shirt and say, hey, first and goal from the 5, just go in there, and you're 6'8", and that guy they're going to put on you is 5'11", and Trace is going to throw it up and just go catch it. And what if he has a role in that capacity? So there's a lot to figure out at tight end, and there's a lot to figure out with this offense because you have so many weapons across the field. It's the great thing about recruiting at a high level, which Penn State's done under James Franklin, but it takes time then to figure out how to use all those pieces once they're ready to play.
Yeah, I think James talked about Zack Koontz, the kid from Camp Hill. You look at him, he still needs to grow. He still needs to add some size. They really like him. But he talked about him in comparison with Mike Gesecki in 2014 and said, you know, we never really should have played Mike, but we didn't have it. We really didn't have a choice. We were kind of shorthanded. Brenneman was hurt at that point. I think Kyle Carter was a little banged up, and they had some other issues at tight end. They had to play him. He looked undersized. I think Zach still looks a little bit undersized. He sounds like they don't want to play him, but the fact that we're not hearing anything about John Holland or Nick Bowers in spring is, I think, a little bit troubling. And I think they're still waiting for someone to emerge. I think they feel good about Tommy, but I think the plan is they have Zach and they have Pat Freiermuth going to be able to practice in August, might be a little bit more physically ready to play. I think you make a case that maybe they play one of them. I don't think they want to play both of them. And I think right now, as we talk about it, I think the plan is maybe Zach might be better off with a year, maybe redshirting, physically growing, but they need to be able to trust someone at tight end, or you're going to see a lot of 4 wide out sets. I'm not sure what they're going to do. I don't think they know what they're going to do yet.
I would have a hard time believing that they do. There's a lot to figure out in guys that still get on campus, so we'll